Should African Americans be recompensed for the slave labor of their ancestors? If you're going to do that, you will have to give America back to the American Indians. Forget the argument over the morality of it for a second. The logistics would be impossible to implement with even the slightest resemblance to fairness. Are we giving reparations to all descendants of slaves? How many generations? How do you prove it? What about indentured servants? What about non-black slaves? Where do the funds come from? All taxpayers across the board or only the descendants of slaveholders? Would modern immigrants be expected to pay? It's a nightmare of a logistics problem that pretty much puts the conversation to bed before it starts. The idea of paying people today for labor 200 years ago. Ridiculous. The idea of acknowledging systemic racism that came in the aftermath of slavery for 100 plus years and investing in proper neighborhoods to account for it. Good. Just to see if I understand. Non-American people who have never had slaves are to compensate people that have never been enslaved. Should the descendants of Chinese Americans and Irish Americans who built the railroads also be compensated for their mostly indentured servitude? No. But I'm all for revitalizing black communities with taxpayer funds. The federal government has been screwing them for decades on basic infrastructure, pollution control, and economic support in rural and urban areas that are a majority black population. I think the money would be better spent investing in education, housing, and employment opportunities for all. I understand where this notion comes from, but simply giving people the respect they deserve and a means of actually bettering themselves would have long-term positive outcomes over just handing over cash. Can also just do this for everyone? If yes, then do Native Americans get compensated for land loss? Do Australia's first people get compensated for the persecution they experienced? Does GB owe India for its losses? Does Germany owe everybody for WW2? Do the Dutch owe the countries they colonize? How far back does this concept reach? Edit. After 400 years, anyone has over 1 million ancestors. For me, some are Native American and some Europeans. If I pay some money into a fund to make reparations because of my European ancestors, do I get some money back because of my Native American ancestors? I also have some Jewish ancestors and some German ones. Who is going to figure out how much is owed to who? I don't need recompense for something that never happened to me. There's a reason why we don't serve time in jail for our parents' crimes. Let's say they get recompensed. There's lots of question about it. What will happen to mixed races? Will I get half the share for being half black? How much is that to pay? If every black person gets $20, that's just an insult. If they get 1 million, it's going to be chaos overnight. Who will pay for it? The current white American? The current Europeans? The current Africans?
No.
No. People who never had slaves shouldn't pay for people who never were slaves. Edit. Thanks for silver. Dubai currently has slaves. 100% no. Of course not. That this is even an issue taken seriously is ridiculous. It's all pandering for political points. And dollar of course. I think there are some things we could do, like stop attaching funding for education to property values and fund schools and social programs equally in all parts of our country. Equal access, equal opportunity would go a long ways towards doing the right thing for society as a whole. Universal healthcare, etc., where the expenses from not having these perks keeps people in poverty. There are others. Of course. No, there are way too many confounding variables. I mean, just for starters, not every Black American is descended from American slaves. Barack Obama, to name one. Lots of Africans have immigrated to the U.S. since slavery was abolished. Not every Black person in the U.S. during slave times was a slave. Some Black people owned slaves. And that's on top that the majority of the non-Black U.S. population had nothing at all to do with slavery. Their families showed up in the U.S. long after slavery was abolished. The Native Americans had virtually nothing to do with slavery. And speaking of reparations due, I feel like this would create some tremendous animosity. I can't imagine this would ease any racial tensions. It really is ridiculous. No one alive has any responsibility for what others did 2 centuries ago.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TooAfraidToAsk is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.